Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. The Taliban say the May 1 deadline as per Doha deal for the withdrawal of the foreign forces has passed. In a tweet, spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid said the group can now take any appropriate action against the occupying forces. This comes as the United States formally began withdrawing its last troops from Afghanistan. Russia's ambassador to the UN nuclear watchdog Mikhail Ulyanov says talks aimed at reviving the 2015 nuclear deal will resume on Friday. He was speaking to reporters after a meeting of the remaining parties to the deal in Vienna. Ulyanov says the talks are moving in the right direction and the final outcome is expected in a few weeks. Kyrgyzstan has accused Tajikistan of building up troops and military equipment near the disputed border following deadly clashes. In a statement, Kyrgyzstan's National Security Committee said Tajik forces violated ceasefire by firing on homes in a border village. 41 people are reported killed and over 100 wounded in clashes that broke out because of a dispute over a water reservoir claimed by both sides. In India, a fire in a COVID-19 hospital ward has killed 18 patients as the country is grappling with the worst outbreak. India has now become the first nation to report over 400,000 infections in a day. It also registered more than 3,500 deaths in the last 24 hours. In Pakistan, the death toll is approaching 18,000 as the country recorded 146 deaths overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3 million lives and infected over 151 million people. In France, thousands of people have joined traditional May Day protests across the country despite COVID-19 restrictions. They demanded social and economic justice and voiced their concerns over the government's plans to change unemployment benefits. And in cricket, Pakistan beat Zimbabwe by an innings and 116 runs in the first test of the two-match series in Harare. Zimbabwe were bowled out for 134 runs in their second innings in reply to Pakistan's 426. HASAN Ali was declared man of the match for his 9 wickets in the match. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Meanwhile, clashes between the Taliban and Afghan army erupted after the former attacked a military outpost in Ghazni city. Provincial officials say the outpost has fallen to the Taliban, whereas the Taliban claim they have also captured 20 soldiers. Earlier, a blast targeted an Afghan army division at Bagram airfield in Parwan province. Officials say 18 soldiers sustained minor injuries in the explosion. Russia's ambassador to the UN nuclear watchdog Mikhail Ulyanov says talks aimed at reviving the 2015 nuclear deal will resume on Friday. He was speaking to reporters after the meeting of the remaining parties to the deal in Vienna. Ulyanov says the talks are moving in the right direction with a final outcome expected in a few weeks. The Vienna negotiations began in early April with a focus on bringing the United States back into their landmark nuclear deal with Iran. US President Joe Biden has pledged to return to the deal. However, the Iranian delegation is not ready to meet US diplomats directly. Kyrgyzstan has accused Tajikistan of building up troops and military equipment near the disputed border following deadly clashes. In a statement, Kyrgyzstan's National Security Committee said Tajik forces violated a ceasefire by firing on homes in a border village. The truce was agreed on Thursday, just hours after heavy fighting erupted on the country's long contested border. 41 people are reportedly killed and over 100 wounded in clashes that broke out because of a dispute over a water reservoir claimed by both sides. At the same time, talks continued to settle the conflict, with the presidents of both the countries speaking over the phone. They discussed ways to implement the ceasefire and agreed to meet in the second half of May. In Iraq, at least 8 soldiers have been killed and a dozen others wounded when militants attacked several checkpoints in northern Kirkuk province. No group has yet claimed the responsibility for the attacks, but Iraqi authorities suspect ISIS was behind the violence. On Friday, 4 Iraqi soldiers were killed in a bomb blast targeting a police patrol in north of Baghdad. Chad's ruling military claims it has wiped out several hundred rebels over 2 days of fighting near the northern town of Noko. In a statement, the council said it took around 60 rebels as captives. The military said 6 of its soldiers died in the fighting, while 22 others were injured. The council added that it has successfully repelled a rebel incursion towards Noko. It said the search for the final fugitives continues. The Transitional Military Council seized power after former President Idris Deby's death and promised to hold elections within 18 months. The northern rebels have rejected the council and are fighting the army in the desert. The Democratic Republic of Congo has declared a state of siege in eastern Ituri and North Kivu provinces. A government spokesperson said the move aims to end the unrest, claiming lives every day. The spokesperson said the details of the measures will be released publicly in the next few hours. Earlier, President Felix Tshisekedi said he was preparing radical measures to deal with the security situation. An estimated 122 armed groups of varying sizes operate in mineral-rich eastern DRC. The violent clashes have killed hundreds since the start of 2021 and displaced more than 1.5 million people. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says the U.S. needs to prepare for future conflicts which will be very different from the past. The Pentagon chief delivered his first significant policy speech during a trip to Hawaii-based U.S. Pacific Command. Austin said the old wars long consumed the Pentagon and called for harnessing technological advances. He stressed the need for better integrating military operations globally to understand, decide, and act faster. The secretary said Washington's response to conflicts could be indirect. He outlined a scenario in which cyber warfare could be used to respond to a maritime security incident hundreds of miles away. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Washington and its allies seek a more constructive relationship with Russia. However, the top U.S. diplomat called on Moscow to honor its international commitments. In a tweet, Blinken said the U.S. condemns Russia's entry ban on EU officials. He termed the move as yet another attempt by Moscow to intimidate its critics. Earlier, Brussels said the latest Russian sanctions on 8 EU individuals seek a confrontation. In a joint statement, the EU leaders termed the move groundless and said it targets the bloc rather than the individuals. In Myanmar, pro-democracy activists are holding rallies across the country, marking 3 months of the coup. In Monvia's Sigayagang region, protesters held a May Day strike against the military junta. Protesters also rallied in Mandalay City and the southern town of Davai. There were reports of several small blasts in different places, including Yangon. Meanwhile, UN envoy Christine Schraner-Bergner says the country risks coming to a standstill as violence worsens. According to an advocacy group, security forces have killed at least 759 protesters in the crackdown so far. India has become the first nation to cross 400,000 COVID-19 infections in a day. The country also recorded more than 3,500 deaths in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3 million lives and infected over 150 million others. More in this report.
India's COVID-19 crisis has plunged the country into an unprecedented catastrophe. While medical experts say real numbers may be 5 to 10 times higher than the official tally. A government forum of scientific advisors says the center ignored warnings of more contagious variants in early March. Meanwhile, in yet another fire at hospital treating coronavirus patients, 18 people, including 2 healthcare workers, have died in western Gujarat state. Several Indian states say they have run out of vaccines.
The companies manufacturing vaccines, the Bharat Biotech and Serum Institute India, will not be able to deliver their doses on May 1. So that is why the vaccination drive in Madhya Pradesh will not begin from May 1.
The US has imposed new travel restrictions on India from May 4th, barring the entry of most non-US citizens. In Rio de Janeiro, 400 empty body bags lined the sand of a beach as an NGO protested against Brazil becoming the second country to pass 400,000 deaths. The World Health Organization has warned that South America has been suffering from a complicated and severe COVID-19 crisis.
Since the beginning of November, Brazil has experienced an acute crisis with increasing cases, hospitalizations, and deaths, including among younger people. During April, intensive care units have been at almost full capacity across the country.
WHO also warned that it is still far away from its goal of equitable vaccine access, and supplies sent to COVAX are not sufficient. This comes as the US officially crossed the 100 million mark of people who are fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, in England, thousands hit a rave in Liverpool as part of a government-backed trial to restart mass audience events.
Pakistan has reported 146 more deaths from COVID-19 and almost 4,700 infections during the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the nationwide death toll is approaching 18,000. Over 825,000 people have contracted the virus so far, out of which more than 717,000 have recovered. The number of active cases has crossed 90,000, nearly 5,500 are in critical condition. Amid the surge in cases, the government has decided to reduce inbound international flights to 20%. Meanwhile, Pakistan has confirmed the first cases of the Brazilian and South African variants in Sindh province. President Arif Alvi has reiterated Pakistan's commitment to improving the living conditions of workers. In a message on International Labour Day, Alvi paid tribute to workers' struggle for fundamental rights.
Prime Minister Imran Khan said the government aims to develop automated and integrated systems for worker welfare institutions. Khan said this will ensure transparency and curtail delays in providing relief to the employees. The International Labour Organization says the COVID-19 pandemic has destroyed jobs, enterprises and livelihoods. Organization's head Guy Ryder called for global solidarity for an equitable recovery from the pandemic. However, due to COVID-19 restrictions globally, significantly fewer activities will be held today. But in Indonesia, thousands vented their anger at the new job creation law, saying it harms their rights and welfare.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Thousands of people have joined traditional May Day protests across France despite COVID-19 restrictions. They demanded social economic justice and voiced their concerns to government plans to change unemployment benefits. About 300 rallies were organized in Paris and other cities. The protests were largely peaceful, but some scuffles were reported in Lyon. Authorities detained 17 people in the capital, where trade unionists were also joined by members of the Yellow Vest movement. In Turkey, police have detained over 200 protesters after scuffles broke out at May Day marches in Istanbul. State media said 20 demonstrators were also detained in the western city of Izmir. The governor's office said some labor unions were allowed to hold memorials to mark the annual holiday. However, others who gathered illegally in violation of the coronavirus-related curfew were detained. Earlier this week, Turkey imposed a 17-day partial lockdown to curb a wave of infections. In India, Sikh devotees have gathered in Amritsar to mark the 400th birth anniversary of their 9th religious leader, Guru Tegh Bahadur. Devotees took a dip in the holy pond inside the Golden Temple premises. Due to the surge in COVID-19 pandemic, only few devotees were in attendance at the temple. Guru Tegh Bahadur was born in Amritsar in 1621. He was named Tegh Bahadur by Guru Hargobind for his courage in battles. Thirteen people have died as floods swept through parts of Yemen amid heavy seasonal rains that began last month. Security officials said 2 children were also among those dead. Fatalities were reported in the provinces of Sana'a, Ib, and Hudaydah. Last year, flooding in the country left dozens dead and forced tens of thousands to leave their homes. It is feared that the latest situation may worsen the humanitarian crisis in the war-torn country. In China, at least 11 people have died and 102 others injured after a hail thunderstorm hit Jiangsu province. Officials said rescuers have evacuated more than 3,000 people in Nantong city. Reportedly, the extreme weather has affected more than 13,000 people in several cities. Strong winds during a thunderstorm downed trees and led to the collapse of buildings and blew people into the river. Elsewhere, 11 people drowned after their fishing boat capsized. 2 of them have been rescued, while the search for 9 others is underway. After overnight repair, the power supply has been resumed in some areas and debris clearing is also underway. In Colombia, protesters turned out to pressure the government to abandon a planned tax reform proposal that has sparked public anger in Bogota. People threw Molotov cocktails and rocks as the police used tear gas and a water cannon. Demonstrators blocked streets with burning barricades and scattered debris across roads. Bogota altered its proposed tax reform to not include sales tax on food, utilities, or gasoline. Officials say the government is willing to modify the reform but will not withdraw it, as the passage of this bill is key to stabilizing public finances and keeping social programs running. Turkey has started construction of the second Miljam-class corvette warship for the Pakistan Navy. Pakistan Navy Commodore Ehsan Ahmed Khan attended the keel-laying ceremony in Istanbul. Speaking at the occasion, Khan termed the event as a defining moment for the two strategically aligned nations. Meanwhile, Islamabad says China has also begun the construction of a third O54A frigate for the Pakistan Navy. A ceremony to this effect was held at Hudong Zonghua shipyard. A Navy spokesperson said both the ships will be laced with modern technology, equipment and sensors. He said the induction of these ships will help maintain a balance of power in the Indian Ocean. German NGO Sea-Watch International says it has rescued 308 migrants off the Libyan coast in the last 48 hours. In a statement, the NGO said they found 4 boats in distress in the Mediterranean Sea. It said the migrants, including women and minors, were adrift at sea in rubber boats. According to the UN, some 480 people have perished in the central Mediterranean so far this year. New York's Empire State Building celebrates its 90th anniversary on Saturday. Many celebrities and sporting icons have posed for paparazzi on the 86th floor observation deck. Mayor Bill de Blasio and other dignitaries are expected to attend the planned anniversary celebrations. The 443-meter tall building was constructed during the Great Depression in just 1 year and 45 days. For almost 40 years, from 1931 until 1970, it claimed the title of the world's tallest building. Now the building is the 7th tallest in New York. It hosted popular annual events like the Valentine's Day weddings and the Empire State Building run-up before COVID-19. The Bonhams Auction House in New York City is set to sell the works of Pablo Picasso, Camille Pissarro and Yayoi Kusama. The Impressionist and Modern Art sale is scheduled for May 13 and Kusama sale is scheduled for May 12.
Pablo Picasso's painting, Fermou Béat Mauve, a portrait of his lover, Marie-Thérèse Waltenot, has not been seen publicly since 1984. It is ready to be auctioned and has a pre-sale estimate of $10 to $15 million. The auction also includes Camille Pissarro's La Rosa, a painting of his Dutch servant, one of his most exquisite works. Pissarro's painting is reported to have a pre-sale estimate of $1.5 to $2 million. Also, a never-before-seen collection of his works by Yayoi Kusama will hit the auction block. Kusama's bold, bright red Hudson River and Mississippi River have pre-sale estimates of $3 to $5 million. Her Untitled painting, a precursor to her Infinity Rooms series, has a pre-sale estimate of $2.5 to $3.5 million.
More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In China, a light show in Wuhan, once hit hard by COVID-19, depicts the city's strong recovery from the coronavirus outbreak. More in this report.
Wuhan decorated its night sky to send a message of hope and innovation to the world. The city is putting on the show under its Tech and Innovation Center, an area called Optics Valley, during the 5-day Labor Day holiday. Buildings along China's longest river, the Yangtze, have been lit up.
We'd like to invite all friends from across the world to Wuhan to enjoy this light show and make them feel the rebirth of the Optics Valley and all the city, as well as the vitality and vigor in economic recovery.
Wuhan's GDP had contracted greatly in the first quarter of 2020, but has managed a robust rebound since the lift of the 76-day lockdown. The economic growth of the city is especially reflected in the high-tech manufacturing industry, with a 5-fold increase in investment compared with early last year.
In the Netherlands, retired shopkeepers Elides Lutz and Harry Dekkers have received the keys to the country's first 3D printed house. The bungalow is printed in 24 parts in a nearby factory before being assembled on a plot in Eindhoven. More in this report.
The new tenants of the first 3D printed house in the Netherlands took a tour of the 2-bedroom concrete bungalow. They admired its undulating walls and sober grey aesthetic, which designers say are meant to evoke a large boulder.
I find it just pretty. An irregularity in the wall, it's like there was a stutter here and then the printing went on. It is really pretty. We feel very good here. I find the colors magnificent. The interior's colors are very pure. It is very good.
Grooves where the printer shuttled back and forth can be seen clearly on the walls of the 94 square meter building.
With this small construction behind us, I think a big step has been taken today towards a high-quality construction industry. With this technology, that is to say, digitalization technology, we have greatly contributed to bringing more versatility, sustainability, and health to the construction industry.
Designers say the house fully complies with Dutch building standards. It is the first of 5 in what they dub Project Milestone, with designs set to become more sophisticated as they build on the knowledge gained.
Another weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. With the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.